Yay. All right, we are
Yay.
recording. Welcome you guys to our very first Zoom video podcast. We're going to put this on YouTube. Weird. We just decided that this morning. So
Yeah. I was like, oh crap. Okay, got to put on makeup and fix my hair.
Me too. I was like, dang it, I haven't even washed my hair. But I was like, it would be a good thing. We're already having to Zoom anyway for this episode. We were just going to do the audio, but I was like, well, we're already recording. We might as well upload the video too. So we're going to do that. Exciting stuff.
Exactly.
So this
All
episode
right.
would normally, oh, sorry.
You're good.
I feel like there's a little bit of a lag. There's a little
there
bit
is
of a
bit
lag,
of a lag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So normally this episode would be our investigation episode because last week we did our story. But as you guys heard last week, our investigation did not work out for us. Oklahoma was against us. That wind was intense with that cold front coming in, and we could not even record our investigation. We couldn't even investigate. The dowsing rods wouldn't work. The wind was just blowing them everywhere. Our mics wouldn't even pick up our voices. We tried our little EVP recorder and it was just wind. So we had to just...
You couldn't hear anything.
No, we had to just call it quits. We couldn't do it. So we're going to go back and investigate Fort Reno. But again, there's been a cold front in, we haven't been able to go back and do that. So at some point we're going to go back because it's going to be great. We're excited about it. However, this week we are doing a brand new thing that was Catherine's idea. Catherine, you want to tell them what it is?
We are going to do a sister state episode.
So exciting!
So we will each do one story. One person will do a true crime story, and one person will do a paranormal story from a state neighboring Oklahoma.
So this time we picked Texas.
Texas.
So exciting. So I'm going to be doing true crime. State. Yes, our frenemy state. I'm going to be doing true crime this week.
And I'm going to be doing paranormal. Spooky.
And we'll probably trade off next time. So next sister state episode, I'll do paranormal. She'll do true crime. Keep it fair, I guess.
Exactly.
Because neither of us are experts in either thing. So,
no.
We're just researching. So anyway, we're really excited. I guess I said this on the other. We did a recording right before this for our Patreon supporters, telling their story, the whole saga of Fort Reno and our absolute fail. But we had a lot of funny stories that went along with it. So if you want to hear those, become a Patreon supporter. But I was telling them that I can literally see my breath. You probably can't see it on the recording.
You can.
Maybe a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is cold in here. I'm out in I have a little she shed and I'm out in it. But it is so cold because I was dumb and I didn't come turn my heater on this morning. So I turned it on for 5 minutes before we recorded and it did nothing. I can't feel my feet right now or my fingers and I can see my breath. So
she's dedicated to the podcast, y'all.
I'm dedicated. It is so cold out here. So anyway, if I start shivering at some point, that's why.
As long as your teeth don't start chattering, we're good.
I'm nervous about that. It's my nose is frozen. So I'm oh, no. Uh-oh. And I keep getting distracted by being able to see my breath. But anyway, so if I'm very easily distracted, more so than normal, that's what it is. It's because I can literally see my breath as I talk. Anyway. Nice. So do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
First? Okay, cool. It's not going to mess up the recording if I get off of this and read my notes, right? Should be fine.
Should be.
We're about to find out. Okay, cool. I hope it doesn't show up on the recording. I should have tested this out. I can't see myself now, so oh well. That's fine. Can I do a split screen?
You still look beautiful. You're good.
Oh, thanks. Okay. So I am going to be covering the murder of Carla Walker. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
It was an unsolved murder for a really long time. Fort Worth area. And it's awful. I picked this one because it happens really close to Valentine's Day. And since we're starting to get close to Valentine's Day, I know that you are going to do a Valentine's Day story. I think for, I guess next week it would be.
Next week.
But so I looked for one also in Oklahoma, the only one I could find was the one that you're doing. So I was like, you know what? I'll do mine a week early. That'll be good.
There you go.
So that's what I'm doing. So anyway, this is the murder of Carla Walker. Let me go ahead and give my sources first before I forget, because I forget every week. So the main one I used was Texas Monthly. They had a really, really in-depth article about it, like very, very detailed. It was really, really well done. And so a lot of my information comes from there. I also got some from Hometown by Handlebar. I think it's a blog. And they had a lot of like additional details. So I got some from that. And that's mostly what I got. I got a couple from like NBC, Dallas Fort Worth, about like the trial once they found out who did it. And that's about it. So we're gonna jump right in, I guess.
All right.
So on the afternoon of September 21st, 2020, members of the elite Delta team of the U.S. Marshals North Texas Fugitive Task Force, it's a really long name. But anyway, Delta team of the U.S. Marshals, basically. They surrounded a small home in a working class neighborhood of Fort Worth, Texas. This unit is specially trained to arrest high-risk criminals. So this was in September of 2020. One officer knocked on the door, which was opened by a 77-year-old man named Glenn McCurley. Glenn was frail, with thinning white hair and sunken-in eyes. His wife, Judy, appeared beside him, leaning on a cane. Officers arrested Glenn while Judy told them that he had cancer and was supposed to go to the doctor later that day. So just like a very strange start to this whole story. Glenn had lived, he had lived in Fort Worth for nearly 50 years. He was married with children. He was called, quote, a good man leading a quiet life. Nobody suspected anything at all. One woman had even written.
Always a bad start.
I know. Pillar of the community, as Em and Christine on, and that's why we drink. Pillar to killer.
Pillar to killer.
Yeah, they're right. So, one woman had even written a letter to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram newspaper after Glenn and his wife Judy had returned the woman's lost wallet, and she said, quote, the world needs more folks like this. So just like truly a pillar of the community. This same man, though, was being charged with the murder of 17-year-old Carla Walker, which had occurred 46 years before.
Holy moly.
Yeah, almost half a century for them to figure out what happened. So we're gonna go back in time a little bit, and I'll tell you the story of exactly what happened 46 years earlier. So, all right. In 1974, 17-year-old Carla Walker was a junior at Fort Worth's Western Hills High School. She was 4'11" with honey blonde hair. Classmates described her as, quote, the kind of girl who smiled and said hello to just about everyone she saw in the hallways. She was just like really friendly, really well loved, just like a good girl. Yeah, she was dating the quarterback of the football team, Rodney McCoy. She told her friends that she had no doubt she and Rodney would get married and start a family. They had even been talking about enrolling together at Texas Tech University. Like, they were like planning their future. They had been together about a year at this point, I think, and just like high school sweethearts. Wow. Yeah, she was like a cheerleader. He was the quarterback of the football team, just like that classic, like Texas high school sweethearts, you know?
That's precious.
I know, very adorable. So on the evening of February 16th, 1974, Carla and Rodney attended the school's Valentine's Day dance together. Carla wore a powder blue dress and the promise ring that Rodney had given her. Precious, right? So after the dance, after the dance, Rodney, Carla, and another couple cruised Camp Bowie Boulevard and stopped at a couple of teen hangouts, Mr. Quick Hamburgers, and Taco Bell. So
nice.
Nothing's changed.
Yes, nothing has changed.
So then after dropping off the other couple, Carla and Rodney drove to a nearby bowling alley so Carla could go in and use the bathroom. When she got back in the car, they started kissing. But then the passenger door flew open and a tall man with short brown hair began bludgeoning Rodney in the head with a pistol.
Holy moly.
It comes out of nowhere. Just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. The man grabbed Carla and said, "You're coming with me, aren't you, sweetie?"
Oh, creepy. No,
so creepy.
Don't like
so
the sweetie.
Awful. I hate it. And then Carla said, "Rodney, go get my dad." And Rodney had been beaten so badly with the pistol that he passed out. And
Oh
when he came
no.
to, I know, so he couldn't do anything. Like he had been, like
Yeah.
he had a pretty severe head injury from it. When he came to, he like immediately rushed to Carla's house, which was only, I think, a mile or two away. It was really close. Again, it was like 74, so they didn't have cell phones. He couldn't just like call the police. So he like went
Right.
to the closest place. Um, Carla's parents were still awake, playing dominoes in the dining room. Carla's 12-year-old brother,
Oh.
Jim, I know. Carla's 12-year-old brother, Jim, and 18-year-old sister, Cindy, were in the living room watching TV together. Um, Rodney rushed into the house with blood dripping down his face, saying, "Mr. Walker, they've got her. They're going to hurt her bad."
Oh.
I know. A lot of this comes like directly from him, like from his testimony later on and things like that.
Yeah.
So we've got like specific quotes, like specific details, and a good majority of this is from that Texas Monthly article. Because it's, if you want to read more, like there's even more that I don't go over that's in that article. It's really, really good.
Gotcha.
Definitely recommend. So a lot of these details are from that. But anyway, he like came into the house and he was like, "You got to help me. They've got her. They're gonna hurt her." And so Carla's father grabbed his pistol and sped to the bowling alley, while Carla's mother called the police. Officers soon arrived at the scene, finding Carla's purse and a magazine clip that had been ejected from the assailant's weapon. So at least they had something.
Okay.
Yeah. So officers began driving around nearby streets looking for any sign of where they could have gone. Other officers circled the city in helicopters. Like they really jumped on this. But there was
Yeah.
no sign of Carla anywhere. She didn't have any enemies. There weren't any clear suspects. Like nobody knows why it was her, who could have done this. There was really no information to go on other than like it was a man with short brown hair. And there's a magazine clip from a gun, but it was like a 22. Like it was kind of a basic, like, you know.
Right. Anybody could have it.
So exactly, it's Texas. It's Fort Worth, Texas. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, they didn't really have anywhere to go with that. They were, I mean, again, like circling all the streets immediately. They had helicopters brought in, but like they didn't see any sign of her until 4 days
Wow.
later on February 20th. Two officers were searching on a 2-lane road near Benbrook Lake, which was about 5 miles from the bowling alley. They spotted a culvert and decided to stop and check there. It was there that they discovered the body of a young woman lying on her back, covered in scratches and bruises. Her blue dress was bloody and ripped. Her bra had been pushed up over her breasts. Her underwear and pantyhose were removed, lying at the entrance to the culvert. Although she had been strangled, there were no ligature marks around her neck, so the investigators believed that the killer had strangled her with his bare hands.
Oh my gosh.
And as I'm sure you've already guessed, this woman was Carla.
Yes. Poor
So,
baby.
yeah, so sad. This murder like shook the entire town. There were over 1,200 people that attended her funeral. Teenagers stopped cruising up and down Camp Bowie Boulevard after school like they normally did. A lot of them wouldn't leave their houses at night anymore. Like everyone was terrified because it was just so random. Even the high school PTA like arranged self-defense classes for students at the high school because everyone was like so scared and had no idea why this
Oh
had happened or
wow.
who had done it. Like they were all so scared. So Fort Worth officials formed a special task
Jeez.
force for it. I know. They formed a special task force, but they didn't really have much to go on. Like there were no fingerprints found on her clothes or her body. The blood that was on her dress was from Rodney's head wound, so that didn't give any like DNA evidence. And again, it was 74, so they had
Right.
also found bodily fluid, but it was 1974, so they didn't have the technology to like test it and get the DNA from it, and just hit a dead end. Like there wasn't enough physical evidence for them to do anything then.
Wow.
I know. They did, however, set up a 24-hour hotline for tips and information. They had a lot of calls come into that, but nothing that really led anywhere. They were told a lot of random information that did not pan out or really apply. Like I think people were trying to help, but none of it really helped. They were
Gotcha.
told that Carla had been killed by a couple of marijuana dealers.
Okay.
Someone else said it was a carnival worker from the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. Another person said it was a like lonely young man who often bowled alone at the bowling alley that she disappeared from. They were really just kind of guessing, just like naming people. then another said that, like, I guess Rodney, her boyfriend, had supposedly gotten into an argument with another boy the night before the dance at Mr. Quick Hamburgers. But, like, none of the tips led to anything. Like, none of them were
Wow.
valid. So there was one interesting call that came from it, though. Again, it didn't really lead anywhere, but it was like, okay, this might mean something. It was from a
Uh-huh.
man who, like, he wouldn't give his name, but he claimed to know the murderer and said that the murderer did not mean to kill Carla and had only wanted to sleep with her. I'm editing for language in case,
Right.
you know, relatives
Right.
listen to this. But yes, so he had only wanted to sleep with her. Didn't mean to murder her, but they didn't give his name, didn't say who it was, didn't give any details. Like, and again, it was 1974, so like there wasn't
Right, because
all the
that's
technology.
okay. He just wants to sleep with her without her consent. That's fine.
Right.
He
Yeah,
didn't, it was an
exactly.
accident, the bad part. The bad part was the killing, and that was an accident. The other part
Right.
was fine, the him wanting to sleep with her without her consent. That was okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Totally fine,
Gosh.
apparently. Ugh, so
Men.
anyway, but like they didn't give a name, they didn't give any information, and like it was 1974. They didn't like have the technology to, I guess, trace
Trace
it
the
as
call.
like they would today. So
Right.
it again led nowhere.
And so
The
the person
detectives,
said that
like,
he knew the person
he
said he knew
said
the murderer, but he didn't give any clue as to who that was.
no, basically he was like, I know this person and they didn't mean to do it. Like he just wanted to sleep with her. He didn't mean to murder her.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But didn't give any information. Wouldn't even say his own name. Like they had nothing to go on from that. Other than like maybe this murderer has told somebody, if that is true
Yeah.
anyway. Other than like he's telling people, so who knows? But so another thing, again, the tip line didn't really like nothing came from that. So another thing the detectives tried was hiring a hypnotist because like that's the logical next step, I guess.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
I don't understand it, but I respect that they were trying. Like they really tried. They tried everything they could think of. So they were really wanting to get more details from Rodney, who had been having difficulty like remembering details of the incident because of his head injury. So like the
Okay.
things that he could recall were really fuzzy and things like that. So they hired a hypnotist to try to get more details out of him. Um,
Okay.
but the only additional information they got from this was that the murderer had been wearing a brown or tan cowboy hat. And
Well,
it's
it's
Fort Worth,
Fort Worth,
Texas.
Texas.
So, like, again, that didn't really help, but like, I guess they got a little bit of extra information. But anyway,
Yeah.
pretty much just another dead end because, like, I read that and I was like, okay, that narrows it down. Not at all. It's literally Texas. And he's wearing a cowboy hat.
Wow.
That's not helpful. Anyway, I mean, they tried another avenue, which I respect. I'm glad they were still trying, but that did not help, I guess.
So could he not remember what the guy looked like?
I don't know exactly. Like, I think he remembered that he was tall and had brown hair, and that that's kind of
Okay.
all that he remembered. But then later on, he was able to remember, like with the hypnotist, that oh, he was also wearing a brown or tan cowboy hat. Um, but
Okay.
then he remembered like Carla's words to him and like the things that the guy said. But I don't know if maybe that came back later because a lot of this came from like his testimony, like way later, I think. So I don't know if
Gotcha.
maybe like right away he was really having trouble because the head injury was so fresh and that maybe some of
Mm-hmm.
it came back to him later. Again, I don't know. That's like pure speculation, but that's what I'm thinking.
Gotcha.
So one of the only real pieces of evidence they had was the magazine clip that was found in the bowling alley parking lot with Carla's purse. They did find out that it belonged to a newer model 22 Ruger handgun.
Okay.
So yeah, so police contacted the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the ATF, to get a list of everyone in Fort Worth area who had purchased that specific model.
Okay.
And it was a couple dozen people, so that did like narrow it down. It provided them with some names, one of which was Glenn McCurley
Okay.
from the beginning of our story. So he was on the radar from the beginning, kind of. So I'm gonna like kind of back up and just tell you a little bit about Glenn and his like upbringing, his life.
Okay.
Um, so Glenn McCurley was raised in West Texas, and he was the oldest of three boys. Supposedly, his father thought that he was undisciplined and a troublemaker, which I guess he was right. But
Yeah.
yeah, but they said like he like loved his two younger boys, but just thought Glenn was like a troublemaker. So as a teenager, they sent him to live at the Westview Boys Home in southwestern Oklahoma. So pulling Oklahoma into the story a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Probably
So they
not
sent him
great, but
not a great connection, but no, it's called Spooky Okie, so all right.
yeah.
So they sent him to live at this boys' home, but no one really knows like why he was sent there initially. It was just kind of for like, you know, kids who didn't have families or had gotten into a lot of trouble, like all of that. So like they didn't really know why they sent him there, like what caused that. So I'd be really curious to find out.
I know it makes me wonder, like, you know, you hear those. I've heard of stories before about kids who, from a young age, have like narcissistic, manipulative
Mm-hmm.
tendencies and stuff. And it makes me wonder, like, was he already showing some of those?
That's what I was
And the
wondering
dad
too.
was picking up on it, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
there's something
Yeah.
different with the way your mind is working.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was wondering because it was just strange that like it wasn't like legal trouble that sent him there. It wasn't like a specific incident that I could find anyway. It's just strange that they would be like, "Yes, sorry, son, we'll keep the other two kids, but you need to go live in a boys' home." I don't know.
Yeah,
It was strange.
that is
So,
strange.
yeah, I thought so too. So in 1961, he had left Westview Boys Home and gone to Abilene, Texas.
Abilene.
Woohoo! I paused for that. I was like, you're gonna have a reaction. I know it.
Go
um,
Wildcats.
so she went to college there, if you can't tell.
Yeah, I
Um,
went to school there. I went to college there.
so he had gone to Abilene, Texas, where he stole a car.
Oh, great.
So like not a great connection again, but you know, it's
No.
fine. We gotta get excited when we can because these stories are so dark. So like when there's
So
one little
he did not find Jesus at Abilene Christian
he
College.
did not. No,
Okay.
unfortunately,
All
no.
right.
He stole a car, then he abandoned that car and stole another one, and then
Okay.
led state highway patrol on a chase. And he attempted to escape on foot, but they caught him. So it didn't like
Yeah.
last long. I don't really know what the
Okay.
point of it was. Like whatever. He pled guilty to that and received a 2-year sentence, but he was released early in 1962. So like maybe a year later, and he was 19 years
Okay.
old at that point. So he was 19.
Okay.
Then he moved to Midland, Texas, where he met Judy Watson. Judy
All
was
right.
described, yeah. So if you recognize her name from the beginning of the story, his wife Judy, that's when he met her.
Yes.
So she was described as a good girl who hadn't dated much, and she immediately fell for Glenn.
Poor
Oh,
girl.
I know. I'm like, oh no. She was just, sorry, I already read that. They were married on February 16th, 1963. So if you recognize that date, that is the same date that Carla was murdered 11 years later on his anniversary.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I was typing this out and I was like, I know that day. Why do I know that day? And I scrolled back up and I was like, are you kidding? He murdered this girl on his anniversary. Wild.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
What did Judy look like?
I don't know. Should look it up. I wonder if they look similar.
That's what I just was wondering.
Hold on. I don't know if there's pictures of her. I'm gonna look it up. I like can't feel my fingers. I'm so cold.
No.
I'm so annoyed. I can't. I need pictures of her when she was like younger. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't really tell. There's not a lot of pictures, and I don't want to like spend forever looking for it just because
Yeah.
we're like recording. But I don't know. I wonder if they did look similar or something. It's just strange
That
that
would
he
be
would do that
interesting
on
on
his
his
anniversary.
anniversary, unless it had something to do with like his relationship
Yeah,
to
right.
his wife.
And like it
Yeah.
didn't seem like they. Anyway, I'll get into it, but it didn't seem like he and his
Okay.
wife had a bad relationship at all. Like she had no idea that this happened. She had no clue.
Wow.
Like she truly like when they went to I'll get into it later, but like when they went to the house, to like question him, you know, when he was like 77 or whatever.
Yeah.
They were like, can you give a DNA sample for us? Like they had like invited the officers inside, like before they went to actually arrest him, when they first went to like talk to him again, they like
Uh-huh.
invited the officers inside and like sat down and talked to them. And Judy was like, I really hope you find whoever did this because this girl deserves justice. Like, I mean, she like sincerely, I don't think she knew at all. Like, I truly don't,
Wow.
which is crazy. But like,
Wow.
she literally told the officers, like, I really hope you catch whoever did this. Like, that girl deserves justice. I don't remember her exact words, but it was something along those lines. Or like, that girl deserves
And
to be
had no
remembered.
idea.
Like, no clue. I don't think
Wow.
anyway. From what I read, it did not seem like she had any idea, which is so crazy. But anyway,
That is
so
insane.
I'll get back to like his early life, I guess, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But it's just so crazy to me, like the connections. It's so weird. Um, so they were married on February 16th, 1963. They had 2 sons together, and Glenn got a job driving a truck for the U.S. Postal Service. Then they moved
Okay.
to Fort Worth. Yeah, they moved to Fort Worth in 1972, where they enrolled their sons in school and began attending church at the Ridgely West Baptist Church.
Okay.
Glenn got a different truck driving job, and Judy worked in the daycare at their church.
I always hate it
So
when they go to church.
I know. Oh shoot, I just got a notification. Our time's gonna end in 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to I might be able to get through it. No, I can't.
Okay.
I'll do it till it ends, and then we'll just start another one, and I'll add them together, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
so so annoying. We're gonna have to like buy the good Zoom, I guess. Anyway, so Judy had a reputation of being warm and motherly, and she was well loved. Glenn wasn't like quite as personable as his wife was, but he also had a good reputation. He was known to like
Okay.
mow the lawn of the church in his free time. He would do repairs for the church. He would help his neighbors with odd jobs. Like he was a pillar of the community, as Em and Christine would say.
Lovely.
So yeah, when police questioned Glenn in 1974, so like when this first happened, when they questioned him about his gun, he told them that his gun had been stolen about 6 weeks earlier from his truck while he was fishing. He agreed to go to the station and take a polygraph test, which he passed, and then he was quickly eliminated as a suspect because there was nothing to like tie him, like other than the gun, having the same
Right.
gun, which he was like, it got stolen, I'll go do a polygraph if you need. Like he was very cooperative. There was nothing to like tie him to Carla. So he was eliminated because he like cooperated, passed the polygraph. So they didn't
Yeah.
even consider him again. And then just dead end. Really nothing else they could do. They, I guess, questioned everyone on the list about the guns and like no matches, nothing came up. And the case went cold for 46 years, which is just
Wow.
so crazy to me. Her family continued to search for answers. Her father died in 1987, and then her mother died in 2015. So they like weren't ever able to get closure on that, which is awful. Like her younger brother continued to like search for answers,
That is
and
so
he would
sad.
call. I know, I hate it. He would like search for answers, and he would continue to like call the police station and just be like, hey, is there any new info? Do you have any updates? And they're like, no, we'll call if we find anything. But there was really, I mean, at that point, like there wasn't much they could do. Nothing new had come in. So he would continue to call. After his parents passed away, he like moved into their house, into the family home, because he said he wanted to be there in case something happened, in case she was ever, you know, the murderer like decided to confess. Like he just wanted to be there.
Wow.
And so he like moved his family into the family, like the childhood home, so that somebody was there, which is so sad to me
Wow.
that like 46 years and he like couldn't move on because there
Is
was no closure for it.
he's not giving up. Yeah.
It's so sad. And like he really did. I mean, he ended up being like a big part in solving it because he would call and just be like, "Do you have any updates? Do you have any updates? Like anything new?" Um, and so eventually, like the detectives would revisit it occasionally, but like again, there was no new information, so there's not much they could do. And then 2
Right.
new detectives were assigned to the cold cases, and they began to work on Carla's case again. Like her brother Jim called and was like, "Hey, you know, you should look at this again. Like I just feel like maybe with the new DNA technology, like all that." And so they did. They reopened it and they were like, okay, let's see what we can do. Like, let me get this old box down of evidence. And so they started working on it. Those detectives were named Leah Wagner and Jeff Bennett. And then
Okay.
in April of 2020, Carla's story was featured on the show The DNA of Murder, which was hosted by Paul Holes, the investigator who solved the Golden State Killer case with the new DNA technology.
Oh,
Yeah, you know how in that case
dang.
they used like the DNA from like things that people had submitted through all the like Ancestry, 23andMe, like all of that stuff,
Right.
and they're
Uh-huh.
able to tie it into a specific family tree. And so they
Yeah.
used that technology, and so now this guy ended up, I guess, hosting a show about it, and they featured Carla's
Oh,
story and
wow.
like tried to solve it. So the investigators, Wagner and Bennett, gave Holes access to files and evidence for the case. The show paid for the DNA testing, which was like $20,000, which is why they hadn't done it because it's so
Golly.
expensive. But the show paid for it because it was on the show, and they were able to find male DNA from stains on Carla's underclothing. They had kept it all these years, like kept it in a way that would like preserve that. And so they were able
Oh,
to like
wow.
pull DNA from old stains from 46 years before.
That's
Um,
crazy.
I know, isn't that so cool? But
That is
when
awesome.
when they ran the DNA through CODIS, which is like, you know, the program where like the criminals like DNA or whatever, there weren't
Mm-hmm.
any matches. So
Okay.
then it was kind of another dead end, but they heard about this lab that used like they used state-of-the-art parallel DNA sequencing to reconstruct the DNA sample's genome. Um,
Okay.
I don't understand any of that, but that's what they do apparently. The lab is called Othram, and it's in Texas, I believe. And so
Okay.
it allowed them to use that DNA information from like different testing websites to construct a family tree. And
Oh,
this led them to the surname McCurley.
okay.
So interesting. So it was very, very similar to like how the Golden State Killer case was solved. Um, and the investigators immediately recognized that name from the original investigation. They were like, wait, we know
Right.
exactly who this is now. Um, and then 3 days later, police collected items from Glenn McCurley's trash can outside of his home and tested it for DNA. They got a McDonald's straw, is actually the item that they got. They tested his McDonald's
Nice.
straw. Yeah. And so, and it matched the DNA that was left on her undergarments 46 years before.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Like just a wild turn of events, like 46 years, and they were still able to like match the DNA.
Good.
Yeah, I was like against all odds. Like that
Yeah.
never happens. These cold cases like rarely ever get solved, but it's so exciting when they do. Um,
Yeah.
so they arrested Glenn and he was charged with capital murder. They also, when they went to arrest him, found the gun that had been supposedly stolen 6 weeks before Carla's murder.
Funny
It
how
was in
that
his home.
happens.
Yeah, interesting. He eventually, like, he went to trial, and then on the third day of his trial, he ended up just pleading guilty and waiving his jury trial. He says that he only pled guilty because he was tired of the hounding and wanted it to be over. And he still maintains his innocence to this day. He's given like
No, honey,
no,
no.
no, there's literally DNA. He's given like different stories
Yeah.
about it. One story was that like it was her boyfriend was hitting her, and so he went to try to rescue her or something. There's one story about that. There was one story about like, oh, somebody else was like trying to hurt her and he rescued her. Um and so then apparently he like took her with him in his car to like a different parking lot, and she was so thankful that he rescued her that she had sex with him, and then he
Yeah,
dropped her
I'm
off and she
sure
was
that's how that
fine.
happened.
Especially because like she was a virgin. She wouldn't sleep with her high school boyfriend yet. She's not going to sleep with some
Yeah.
random guy. Like, no.
No.
So, anyway, like by everyone's accounts, they were like, absolutely no, she would not do that. Like everybody knew her. They knew that that was not going to happen. But anyway, but he was like, no, like she wanted to sleep with me. She slept with me. And then I dropped her off and she was like standing in the parking lot when I dropped her off. Like she was fine. It wasn't me.
Oh, so he rescued her, but then he's gonna drop her off in a parking lot all alone?
Right. His stories do not add up. And
Okay.
I've read like different ones too. I'm like, just pick one. If you're gonna lie about something, keep it the same. It's just
Yeah, and make it
yeah.
better. I'm sorry, but
I
that's
know.
not a good story.
No, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so he did end up pleading guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison, but they didn't pursue like the death penalty or anything. I guess they considered it, But again, he had cancer. And so they
Yeah,
were like,
that's kind of a waste of.
yeah. So
Yeah.
they just sentenced him to life in prison because they were like, he already kind of has a death sentence. Like it was like a really bad aggressive cancer. He was not gonna survive it. Although
Good.
I believe he's still alive. From what I can tell, like I
Oh,
haven't seen anything about him dying. I think he's still alive. I might be wrong about that, but I really tried to find any information about if he had passed away in prison, and I think he's alive. He tried to appeal it like last year, saying that the police were like wrong in getting his trash and testing it for DNA, but I think that
no.
very quickly
Yeah.
they were like no, because they also like they got that and it matched, but like they went and asked him to give a DNA sample and he agreed, and then that matched.
Right.
So
Right.
even if they shouldn't have done that, like he still gave his DNA and it matched. Okay,
Of
this
free
recording's
will.
about to stop, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this meeting and we'll just do another one real fast.
Okay. All right.
Okay. How do I stop recording? Okay. All right, we are back. Sorry, we had to stop our recording because we have the free version of Zoom. So
I'm a teacher and Madison's an actress. I mean, like,
we can't afford the good version.
no. And I just got a notification yesterday that my mortgage payment's going up by like over $200.
No, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So definitely can't afford premium Zoom.
No. We will
support us
splice
on
this video
Patreon,
together.
guys.
Pay for our Zoom. No, we will just splice this together because that's no big deal to do. I say as I've never done it, but like it should be fine. iMovie, right?
We've figured everything else out so far.
Exactly.
I've got faith
We've been
in you,
really
Madison.
resourceful. Thank you. I'm really trying. I've learned a lot through this process. So
you've been killing it.
Oh, thank you. My editing skills can use some additional work, but you know, pretty good for not knowing anything at all, I think. So
yeah, I would say so.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Anyway, so where we left off was he had been sentenced to life in prison. They weren't pursuing the death sentence because he was already like about to die probably, although I think he hasn't yet, and he tried to file an appeal, but I don't think that stuck because that was dumb. Anyway,
I don't even get why he's trying at this point. Like, dude, they've got DNA evidence. Like, you did it. That's enough.
Exactly. So
admit
but
it.
his story,
You had 46 years of freedom. Time to pay the piper. Like, sorry.
Exactly. For your last like few years, maybe if that long. Like, I don't know. But his story, again, with the DNA evidence, his story is that she did have sex with him, but it was like consensual. She wanted to, and then he left her and she was fine when he left.
No way.
So I think that's how he's trying to explain away the DNA evidence, which I'm like, that makes no sense. They were driving around looking for her. She wasn't just left in the parking lot and they didn't find her. It's dumb.
They were looking for her for days. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, something else interesting though about this whole scenario is that when it first started, there were some other similar cases and police had started looking for a serial killer. So there are many people who think that Carla was not the only victim. So there's actually there's a long list that I'm going to read off of just the like bare minimum about each case. Again, like just like the date, age, name, and kind of like cause of death sort of thing. But there's a lot that happened right around then and then just like kind of stopped, which is interesting because I don't know why they stopped. I've got maybe some theories, but anyway, we'll see. So the first one was on February 7th, 1973, which was 1 year before Carla's murder, like almost exactly a year before.
And still really close to the anniversary date.
A lot of these seem to happen in February, at least at first, like the first few, and then it kind of picks up. But the first few, like there's quite a few in February, which is really interesting to me. So this was a year before her murder. A woman named Becky Martin never returned home from her night class at Tarrant County Junior College. And then her body was found 7 weeks later, so badly decomposed that a cause of death couldn't be determined. She had also been found in a culvert just outside city limits, like Carla. It was a year before. Interesting.
That's suspicious, yes.
Very suspicious. So then on February 19th of 1977, which was like 3 years after Carla, the body of 25-year-old June Ward, a nurse, was discovered. She had been strangled and beaten over the head with some sort of sharp, heavy object. So another that's kind of similar age group, also strangled, also in
Seems
February.
similar.
It's just strange.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of these, like, they're not saying they're for sure connected. These are just cases that could possibly be connected, but they don't know. They haven't like officially said like, yes, these are the same person. We're dealing with a serial killer. They just had kind of like kept them in mind and been like, we might have a serial killer. So, which I think they did, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, like Fort Worth, Dallas area is so big that like it could have been totally unrelated, but these were all like Fort Worth area. It's just strange.
And it's just too similar. Like it just seems very
especially
similar
that
area,
first
similar
one.
dumping. Yeah.
Yeah, that first one was like, it has to be the same person. Like, I don't know. We'll see. But so then next on July 9th of 1980, so again 3 years later, 19-year-old Denise Huff was found near a creek bridge. She had also been strangled.
Very similar.
And then in February of 1983, so another like 3 years later, the body of Christy Tower was found in a field north of the city. She had electrical wire around her wrists where they had been like bound together, and she also had it around her neck. So again, strangled, like
strangled. Yeah. A little bit different.
Bit different, but still similar. Her purse, however, had been found in a dumpster behind Cheers, which is a bar only half a mile from where Carla had been kidnapped. So very similar area.
Yeah. Similar hunting grounds. Yep.
Exactly. And it didn't say if anything was missing from her purse, so like I don't know what the motive was, but like Carla's purse was left behind also.
Right.
So, interesting to me. And then on September 9th of 1984, so only a year and a half later, 23-year-old Catherine Davis disappeared and her body was found in a field also. I don't have any details about like cause of death. A lot of these are just like very bare minimum. I didn't go super in depth looking for all of the details, but they were kind of they were listed on one of those articles about like, was she the only victim? Here's some other ones that it could have been.
Right.
So, and then on October 19th, 1984, we're really starting to pick up, like it's really picking up. I mean, some of them are days apart. This one was like a month and 10 days or something. So 29-year-old teacher Marilyn Hartman was found gagged and strangled in her bedroom.
Okay, so that's
a little different.
Yeah,
pretty different, but still strangled, still kind of similar age group, I guess. Young woman.
Yeah.
And then on October 22nd, 1984, only 3 days later, 23-year-old Cindy Heller disappeared, and she was found strangled in a creek bed on the Texas Christian University campus.
Okay, that one's more similar. Very similar. That one's more similar.
Yep.
The in the home one, that would be a big jump.
That one's that one's a little strange. I'm not sure that one is connected, but it was on the list, so I'm including it.
Yeah. That would just be a big jump from doing hunting in like parking lots and outside and while they're out of their home to suddenly going in the home to kill and not disposing of the body elsewhere.
Exactly.
Like that's a pretty big jump.
I think so as well. That next one with like found in a creek bed, strangled, I'm like, that sounds
that's
similar
very
to me.
much the same MO. Yeah.
That one sounds more likely than the other one. This one is also a little bit different. It's also in the home. So on November 26th of 1984, so like a month later, Catherine Jackson was found in her bathtub with the water still running. She had been strangled with a cord. So that one's a little different too. Also in the home. So maybe those two are a different killer. Yeah. Those are similar. They're both in the home.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, 21-year-old Angela Ewert left her fiance's house and was never seen again. Her car was discovered the next day abandoned, and her decomposed remains were eventually found in a field. So
wow.
It goes from like creek beds, culverts to kind of fields, but I feel like they're kind of similar enough that like, just kind of dumped somewhere. So that one also could be. And then on December 22nd of 1984, so maybe a couple of weeks after that one, 21-year-old Regina Grover and her boyfriend were seen walking out of the Keg, a restaurant on Camp Bowie Boulevard, which is the boulevard that they were like cruising with Carla. So same road. Regina was found the next day in a creek under a bridge, having been strangled and drowned. And her boyfriend was actually found bludgeoned to death in his bed.
Oh, wow.
Which is different, but I mean, he attacked Rodney, like Carla's
He attacked
boyfriend.
Rodney. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know why it would be in his bed. Like that one I'm not sure about, but the like in a creek under a bridge, like he kidnapped the woman and just beat the man, like that's similar.
Yeah.
So
unless
I don't
it's
know.
like the only thing I could think of is if he bludgeoned him elsewhere and the guy made it back home.
That's true. Yeah. That could have
and
happened.
collapsed.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That could be it.
Like,
yeah.
Like he didn't think he was dying, but he thought obviously he was beat up, but he did die from his injuries, but he had made it back home.
Oh,
like,
that could be it.
If that was the case, that would make more sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that could be it. I wonder. I didn't go in super into detail for these, but it could be. Okay, and then the next one, we kind of skip forward like about a year and a half or so. So on February 24th of 1986, a woman's unclothed body was found partially wrapped in a blanket lying on a hillside near a park. She had been strangled, but her identity still remains unknown as far as I can tell.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So again, that's another one in February. Another one found like strangled.
Strangled outside.
So,
and what was the year on that one?
1986.
1986.
And that's the last one that I saw that they like had thought was connected. It just kind of went quiet after that.
Okay.
Which he had already like, it got really, really intense there for a while, like back to back, and then kind of backed off, and then had another one. So I don't know what was going on like during those times, why he backed off and then started again. Because at first it was like about 3 years apart. And so if these all were him, or a good portion of them were him, my theory of why he stopped is his son was actually killed by a drunk driver in 1988, which would have only been about 2 years later. If he had maybe kind of slowed down again and gone back to the like every 2 or 3 years thing, then maybe that's what caused him to stop. Completely. I don't know. That's all I can come up with. You know what I mean? Like that's the only thing I saw that I was like, oh, that would explain kind of why he would stop. I know it doesn't line up exactly, but if he had started to kind of slow down again back to that like every 3 years or so, and then that happens just a couple years later, then maybe that's why he stopped. I don't know. Yeah. If these were even him, again, it's all like pure speculation. So, but a lot of people think that like there had to be more.
It's weirdly similar though.
It's very weirdly similar. And like,
and it seems weird for him to just have that one incident, like one brutal random incident, and not have anything else.
That's the thing, is like, it's so senseless. And so like, he didn't have a connection with her. Like there was no real motive other than like, I'm going to go rape and murder this woman. Like there's no connection there, which is, it would be strange for him to just stop, I think, after one. It would make more sense for there to be more. He said that like, one of his stories was that he had been drinking a lot that night. It was his anniversary and he like was out drinking. I don't know. It doesn't make sense again, but no, I guess that was his story. And then I don't know. His stories didn't add up. Like there were so many different ones that I'm getting confused, like trying to keep them all straight. But anyway, so who knows if he did the rest of them, but it would be really weird for him to just like randomly decide to rape and kill one woman and then stop. It doesn't make sense. And there are too many.
That's a very aggressive first incident, and for it to be the only incident, like for it not to be like something that she had done something to him, that the rage came on because of previous incidents. Not saying like obviously that would be okay, but like that would explain a one-time thing. But for it to be a random person, no connection to them, and to just brutally murder them after viciously attacking them and then not have any other incidents, That would be really rare.
It doesn't make sense. Like psychologically, it does not make sense. Like that doesn't happen really. From what I know, not that I'm a pro, not that I'm an expert or anything, but like that doesn't happen. Like you don't just like decide I'm gonna rape and murder someone, but it's gonna be someone I don't know. I'm gonna randomly attack them, and then I guess I'm done. I guess I'm not gonna do that again. Like that doesn't add up. So anyway, it would make sense to me that at least some of these were probably also him, especially because the MO on some of them are so similar. So
very similar.
So I don't know. But he was only ever charged with her murder. And but police did, like, although at the time, like, they did believe they were probably dealing with a serial killer, they never like publicly announced it or things like that. But they did.
It makes me wonder if they're gonna do any DNA tests on any of the other cases and try to see if it's his. I would hope they would.
Yeah, I would hope they would. I know that they're like really old cases, so I don't know if they were all kept as like, I don't know if they were all like as thoroughly done as Carla's and like kept all that evidence. And I know it's like $20,000 to do that DNA testing. So I know it's really expensive, but like they also deserve justice and closure, and like those families deserve it. So I hope if they can that they will. But anyway, it took 46 years for this case to be solved, and like a lot of the others will like realistically probably never be solved, which is so sad, so awful. But I'm just glad that like hers was able to be solved, even though it was literally 46 years, which is so crazy to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, that is the story of the murder of Carla Walker for our very first sister state true crime story.
Well done. That was a crazy
thank
story.
you. It was wild. It's wild. So I'm really excited to hear yours, though. I can't wait. Ready for a paranormal story? Hopefully it's not quite as like brutal as this true crime. Oh.
I know. It's not as brutal. Not at all. Good. Mine's actually pretty lighthearted.
Oh, great. We need that.
All right, so I am going to talk about the U.S.S Lexington, which is located in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Cool. I've never heard of it.
I had not either. So, before I forget, I'm going to list my sources. So, my first source is tpr.org, which I believe is Texas Public Radio. Let me double check. Yes, Texas Public Radio. .org, U.S.S Lexington.com, thecaller.com, or just caller.com, and then a YouTube video by Texas Country Reporter, hauntedplacestogo.com, and I went ahead and put this on here. I didn't really use much from it, but a couple of places like mentioned things from this episode. It's an episode of Ghost Hunters. It's season 3, episode 11 of Ghost Hunters. They went and visited the U.S.S Lexington.
Cool.
All right. So the U.S.S Lexington is also called the Blue Ghost, which is a perfect name for a haunted aircraft carrier.
Ah, that's cool.
So the U.S.S Lexington was commissioned in 1943. She was decommissioned in 1991. And at that time, she was the oldest working aircraft carrier.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So this is just a little bit of the history of the ship before we get into the spooky stuff.
Awesome.
She was originally supposed to be named the USS Cabot, C-A-B-O-T. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But when the original Lexington was sunk in the Coral Sea, they changed the USS Cabot to the USS Lexington.
Cool.
I'm like, that has to be a man's decision, because why in the world would you name a ship the name of a ship that just sunk?
Yeah, that doesn't seem like good vibes, but okay.
No, and also how confusing, because now you have 2 ships with the same name.
I mean, it would be like naming a giant cruise ship the Titanic. Like, I wouldn't be going on that. Yikes. Okay.
I was like, and just the confusion too. So like when you do like research on this, you have to figure out, am I talking about this Lexington or the previous Lexington? So you
That's
have
so
to like look at the
confusing.
years. Yeah. So
I mean,
that
I
had
guess
to
they
be a
probably,
guy's decision.
yeah, I guess they probably didn't think like people were going to be researching this haunted ship very much. Like, I guess in theory, like you're not going to research individual like aircraft carriers many
I guess,
times.
but
I
like
don't know.
military history buffs would
That's
be like
true.
looking at it. So I don't get it.
They could have been like
Um,
U.S.S Lexington #2, Junior, Lexington Junior.
yeah, I know. Something,
Yeah.
something. Um, but a cool fact about this ship was the first aircraft carrier to have a women crew on board.
Oh, okay. Very progressive of them. I like it. Cool.
Yes. So once the Lexington was commissioned, the Lexington joined the Fifth Fleet at Pearl Harbor, where she then engaged in a lot of battles during World War II. Basically,
Okay.
every time she was up and running, she was engaged in whatever battle was happening in the Pacific region.
Okay.
She spent in total about 21 months in combat.
That seems like a lot. I
Uh,
mean, I know nothing about combat, but that seems like a lot.
it seems like a lot to me too. Her planes destroyed in air, so like the planes that would use that aircraft carrier, those planes destroyed while in air 372 planes.
Oh my
So in
goodness.
air combat.
Yeah.
And then on the ground, more than or about 475 more planes, but on the ground.
That's so
So like from
many.
air, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So she sank or destroyed over 300,000 tons of enemy cargo.
Okay.
And then an additional 600,000 tons were damaged cargo, like enemy cargo.
All right.
The ship's guns shot down 15 planes and assisted in shooting down 5 more.
That's a lot.
So she's a beast.
Yeah. She did her job well.
And that crew's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Japanese actually reported the Lexington being sunk 4 different times. But every time she was repaired and sent back into battle, which earned her the name the Blue Ghost.
I love it. Yeah, it's like they're seeing a ghost. Brilliant.
So, yep. She could not be kept away. So then she became a training carrier in Pensacola, Florida, before she was decommissioned and sent to Corpus Christi to stay there as a museum. And she was put there on January 29th, 1992.
Okay, cool. Is she like
So she's
oh sorry. This lag is really
no, you're
annoying.
good. It
Is she
is.
like you know how like the Queen Mary, you can like go and stay there in like rooms? Can you go stay in this one or is it like strictly a museum and stuff?
I don't think you can stay in there, but you
Okay.
can go visit it. Yeah, like
Okay.
you can explore through part of it. There are parts where you can't walk through, but there are parts
Right.
that you can.
Okay, cool, cool. I was about to say, if you can go stay there like the Queen Mary, like let's go stay there and do a ghost hunt overnight. But I guess they don't have rooms, so.
It seems like we don't even have to go at night to see stuff.
Really? Okay, okay. Cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
So, the video that I watched on YouTube from Texas Country Reporter, it was from 1995. So the people that I'm going to talk about right here were people that were working during that time. I don't know if they still work there or not. So the first person in the video that they interviewed, his name is David Deal. He is a Vietnam vet, and he led tours on the ship.
Well,
He
thank you
was
for your
not
service, David.
Yes, thank you. He is not a believer in the paranormal. However, he has become one since working on the ship.
I always get so nervous hearing that because it's like, oh, that must be some really intense stuff. Because you're not even like open to it. You know what I mean? Like we're like, I mean, we're still like more on the skeptic side, but like we're open to it. And I feel like as we continue like doing these investigations, I feel like we're like I'm becoming more in tune at least. I don't know. You're probably the same way, but I feel like I'm able to like sense things more than I could before we started this. But for somebody to go from complete skeptic to being like, yes, I believe in this, like it has to be so intense.
Oh yeah. Because think, Vietnam vet, so like hardcore dude.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I don't believe in this crap. And then he's like, yeah, actually, I've seen some stuff.
Yikes.
I get it now.
Right.
So, the first thing that he talks about is there's actually an apparition that appears to people on the ship.
Like during the day?
So, like during the day.
That's a lot of energy, I feel like.
Yeah.
My
And this
goodness.
apparition has been mentioned a lot.
Okay. Ooh.
So, he said typically people describe him as a little sailor guy. He's got blue
Oh,
eyes.
cute.
He's got a white hat. Yeah. He walks with a little bit
Precious.
of a limp.
Oh.
He's about 19 or 20 years old and always wearing a white uniform.
Oh, he's just a baby.
Yeah. So he's typically seen in the engine room, and visitors will see him and think that he's part of the tour.
Oh. So it's like a really powerful apparition. Like if they're thinking it's
It's
a real person. Ooh.
like people think he's a real person. Yes.
That always freaks me out. Like it's one thing to see like a hazy figure in the corridor or something, but then to be like, "Oh, hello, sir. Can you tell me where this is?" And then it's a literal ghost. Like that's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So the tour group, they don't have anybody dressed up in costume, in uniforms. They're all in like a tour guide uniform. They're not in naval uniforms. So there's
Right.
nobody to like, be mixed up
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
And he said something about like he's typically aware of when there's actual sailors on board who are viewing.
Right.
And so he was like, there was nobody on the ship this day. So there was a specific day he remembers when he first was like, oh, maybe this stuff is legit.
Mhm.
And a couple, I think he said from Oregon, came. And as they finished the tour, they're like, thank you so much for the tour. We really enjoyed it. And we love the guy in the engine room. He told us all about how the engines worked. And we really enjoyed how, he acted the part and he wore the uniform. Like it was just fantastic.
That is crazy. Just the fact that he's like talking to them and telling them things, like he's not just some like
Yeah.
residual energy left. Like he is intelligent and like having conversations with people and looking like a real
Yeah.
person. That's a powerful
Yeah.
ghost. Dude,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
And David was like, I don't think there's any sailors on board today, but I'm glad you enjoyed the tour. And
That's
then he was like,
crazy.
maybe there's something to this. And there's been multiple people that have reported seeing, and his name is Charlie.
Oh, Charlie.
That's the name that Ghost Tour or Ghost what would I say? Ghost Hunters. That's the name
I
they
wanted to
got,
say
was
Ghost
Charlie.
Adventures, but it's not that.
Wrong show.
Not Ghost Adventures.
Ghost Hunters. Yeah. So they got the name Charlie when they went on the ship. That's the name they got from him.
Okay. Oh.
So the other story that David tells is one night I think he was closing up. That's the impression I got. It could have been something else, but that was the impression I got, is that he was kind of closing up for the day. And so he's walking through this portion of the ship, and he's walking a little ways away to turn off some lights, and the door that he had gone through to get into this area closes behind him. And if you think about like a naval ship, these are not just like a soft, like easy to
Right.
close wooden door that can blow
These
with
are
the
like,
wind.
I'm sure
These
like
are
heavy steel
thick
doors.
metal doors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh.
And so it closes. He goes over, like the handle even turns to close.
Did you get that notification? Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
We have 10 minutes.
yes. Okay, I probably won't be done then in 10 minutes.
That's fine. We'll go until we get like we'll go to like less than a minute and then we'll find a spot to stop. It's fine.
Okay. So he goes over to the door to open it, and he can't open it. He said it felt like somebody was on the other side holding it down as he's trying to lift the lever up to open it.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. So he goes around the ship, like he goes down different corridors, goes back to the door to see what's up, because he's like, they had to have a reason, because he's at this point he's thinking it's another staff member that closed it.
Yeah.
And he's thinking, okay, somebody had to close it for some reason, like I'll figure out why, we'll figure this out. He goes back over there, it's completely wide open, like it was when he first walked through it.
Oh my goodness, that's so scary.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. So he was like, I definitely like believe in the fact that there's things here now.
Yeah.
So the next person they talked to, she didn't have a ton of stories, but Judith Whipple, she was a researcher on the Lexington staff, so a historian researcher. She said that there are places that she just does not want to go to on the ship, that she just has these creepy feelings, and she's like, I'm not a big paranormal person either, but there are places that I go to where I feel like I'm watched, or I feel like there's somebody right there with me and I'm by myself.
I
And,
don't like
and
that.
so the place where she especially doesn't like to go to, which I thought this was extra creepy, it's called the O2 level, and it's where the crew quarters were. So think about all those sailor men.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's like, that's where she does not like to go alone, because it always feels like there's somebody like right there by her, or that somebody's watching her.
I don't like that at all.
No, that's creepy. So then there was a report with caller.com that had some interviews with some other people. So in 2018, they talked to the director of operations and exhibits, Charles, I think it's Russell. I'm not sure. It's Reustle. So either Russell or Russell. I'm going to go with Russell.
Sure. Sounds good. Charles.
So
Charles, right?
Charles.
Okay.
Charles. Yeah. Charles. He says that they get hundreds of reports of paranormal activity every year.
Ooh. Okay, so it's like
So
super active.
It's super active.
Hey.
So he also said that he was not a particularly like believer in the paranormal.
Sensing a trend here. Yes.
Yeah. But he said he said there are just some experiences that he can't explain. Like they're just really weird. So this is honestly a really funny one. So he always uses a ballpoint pen.
Okay.
And there was a series of 5 weeks where he kept losing a pen cap every week.
Oh.
So then he lost a 6th one. This is week 5. He's lost his 6th one. He's like, this is ridiculous. How in the world have I lost 6 pen caps from my desk in my office? So he turns his office upside down, organizes it completely, does not find any extra pen caps. Not a single extra pen cap. Leaves for the day. He's like, at least my office is organized. I'm going to go home. Comes back the next morning. All 6 pin caps were lined up side by side right in front of his computer keyboard.
Absolutely not. That's funny. That ghost was like, all right, you're on to me. Here you go. You can have them back. At least you cleaned your office.
Fine.
Maybe the ghost just wanted it to be clean. Yeah, maybe the ghost just wanted it to be clean. Yeah. So funny.
So he said he just never felt anything malicious on board. He said it's always just felt like it's more prankster or playful than, or like helpful than and like mean or bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
he
good.
said that again. Yeah. So he said again that one of the very popular ghosts is the one in the engine room, the sailor that helps helps explain the engine room. But there's another ghost apparently that helps guests who are lost find their way back to the deck. And again, it's the sailor.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice.
Yeah. Precious. So I'm like, these are just like sweet sailor boys that are just trying to make sure that people on their ship are taken care of.
Just sweet little gentlemen. I love it.
I know.
Precious. These are the kind of ghost stories I like.
I know. Renee Moreda, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Rene, and then Moraida. I'm going to go with Renee.
Sure. Yeah.
She's the education coordinator for the museum. And her story that she told the article, or the people doing the article, was that one night some security officers heard running in one of the hangar bays at 3 a.m.
Of course.
So they're watching the cameras. They don't see anything on camera. So the damage control officer decides to go check it out. He's like, we hear it, but we can't see it. So I'm going to go check it out. When he gets there, he sees shadow figures, not just one, multiple, running around in chaos. He left and he never came back.
What? That's so creepy. Why are they running around? Usually they're just like standing somewhere or like walking, but like, why are they running around in chaos?
So Bill Miller, who's a volunteer and he's a paranormal tour guide, says that he believes it's sailors trying to run for cover after the ship was hit by a torpedo in that hangar bay.
That's really sad.
Yeah, because there were...
at least they're not like creepy shadow figures.
Yeah, they're not creepy. They're just trying to run for cover.
That's sad.
Yeah. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I believe in Ghost Hunters, they said that the number of people that died on that ship was about 300, like during wartime activities.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of energy there.
Yeah, because if you think about it, 4 times the Japanese declared the ship sunk. That means that there was massive blows to that ship, so people were injured and killed. I believe in the one that where the torpedo hit that hangar bay, I believe it was 50 people that died in that one incident.
Oh, okay. No wonder they were running around in chaos. I get it.
Yeah. So in other parts of the ship, people have felt ill in certain parts of the ship. In the what do they call it? The galley or the commissary, like where they come to eat. If men come in with a hat on, they hear a voice that tells them to take off their hat.
They said, be respectful.
Take off your hat, you're inside.
That's funny.
People will hear voices, screams, and the sound of weapons firing.
Dang. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that is the story of Lady Lex, Miss U.S.S Lexington.
Okay. That is crazy. I really like that. It's like not a spooky story. It's like a good ghost story, a mostly helpful ghost. There is a bee in here. Do you hear it buzzing?
I don't.
It's right in front of me. It just landed on my light. Okay, well, I guess that's a sign that it's time to go before I get stung. Why is there a bee in my shed?
I don't know, but it was a really freaky time for you to be all freaked out because we were just like,
it just came out of nowhere too. Like, what? It has not been in here the whole time. It just ugh. Okay, anyway, I gotta go get rid of this bee, but I'm not gonna kill it because I don't want to kill a bee. So now I gotta try to trap it.
All right, well, we got less than a minute anyway, so.
Well, okay, good timing. It's like flying very close to me now, so I better go.
All right, don't forget to follow us on Patreon, support us, tell other people about the podcast, and stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Bye.
Bye.